I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, very good, very good. All right, so the agenda has been posted. We've done the roll call. Want to accept, have you had a chance to look at the agenda? Any questions about it? Would you like to move adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
So moved. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right. Okay, we're down to public comments, and we do have a request for a public comment from Jeff Deneen Jones, not a relative, by the way. There are lots of us Joneses who are not related. Nadia, is Jeff online yet?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
Jeff?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, and you have
Great.
3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to address the commission on any subject within our purview. So
Okay.
the time starts now.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. I'm Jeff Deneen Jones. I'm a resident here in Palm Springs. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. I just wanted to propose an idea of maybe having some sort of shelter for the rideshare area at the Palm Springs International Airport. As you probably know, at this point, it's just open air. So folks that are waiting for their Lyft and for Uber are exposed to the sun, and it gets quite hot. I flew into Palm Springs in June, and I waited about 10 minutes for my Lyft to arrive, and it was about 100 degrees at that point, and it was, it's pretty uncomfortable. And the other gentleman that was waiting as well, he had been waiting about 10 minutes too, and we both got picked up about the same time. But so I don't know what the process is or anything quite like that, but I just wanted to put that out there, maybe something that's similar to like what you have at bus stops and other public, for transportation and everything. Just something that kind of blocks the sun to create a shaded area for travelers. And that's basically it.
Okay, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. And thank you for taking the time to address the commission this evening.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Great. I'll see you later. I don't believe we have any other requests for public comments, do we, Nadia?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. We are now up to the approval of the minutes. Before I move to the minutes, Nadia, I don't know if you've picked up the additional people who have joined.
No.
Okay, we've got Bill Pattison, just to tell you, Todd Burke, Jan Schmitz is here, Kevin Corcoran, Paul is here, Jan Pye, and I think the rest that you had.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just looking through here. I think the rest of them had actually been able to respond. One of the things I would ask is unless you're speaking, so we can ensure that we don't have feedback, is to mute your microphones, if you would. That would be the best thing. And then if we get into discussions on items, if you would raise your hand that you would like to be recognized, I'll make a list of in the speaking order as I do when we're meeting in person. This worked well at our last meeting, so I suspect it will work well today as well, I hope. So now we're down to the approval of the minutes of the June 10th meeting. If you've had an opportunity to review the minutes, and if any additions or corrections.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a move to adopt by Rolf. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ken. Okay. Without any other further questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Any abstentions? All right. The minutes are adopted. The next item of business is the election of officers. We were asked to continue to elect the chairman and the vice chairman. Historically, we always elect the chairman first, and since I'm in that role, I turn to the vice chair, Rolf, to manage this part of the election.
Okay. Thank you, Al. And David, did you just raise your hand?
If I could, I've got the clerk here to handle the election.
Ah, very good.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
The city clerk is going to join you. He'll handle. Go ahead.
So
Good
I'm
evening, Commission.
David, you faded out. What did you say?
I'm Anthony Mejia, the city clerk, and I'll be assisting with the election of officers.
Okay. All right. So you're going to take over.
Yeah. So I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the position of chair.
I'd like to nominate Al Jones.
Seeing
The rest of you need to unmute yourselves. I'm sorry, here, just a second. If you're going to say anything, I saw Patricia talking. You're muted, Patricia. Need to unmute. There you go.
I wanted to second that nomination, and if we have a chance to expedite on it, I'd like to just mention a few things that are important to me. First of all, as the chair, thank you, Al, for all the information you've given over the years and the insightful inquiries you've made at meetings. But also, I think we have special circumstances right now. We need a smooth transition. We need a continuing leadership for this commission and for the Palm Springs International Airport. Any one of you would be wonderful, but I think we need this transition. And our current chair, Al, has been staying in regular contact with Tom, and we all know Tom is leaving. Good for you, Tom. Good for you, but bad for us. I think as a result, certain protocols have been put in place due to the coronavirus and due to a lot of projects that are on hold and due to a lot of grants. And so I just would like to say that I do think with all these things and with Al's great leadership and his work with Tom, I think it's fitting.
Thank you.
I'm gonna cut in. I did raise my hand. I second Patricia's statement.
With that, are there any other nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. By unanimous consent, if you oppose, please state no. Motion passes by unanimous consent.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones, or Chair Jones, I defer to you for the election of vice chair.
Oh, you're not going to run that one. Okay. Well, then thank you again for your vote of confidence. Thank you for your very kind words, Patricia and Ken, for the nomination and your all support. So now we move to the vice chair. Do we have nominations for the vice chair? I would nominate Rolf. He's done a terrific job as vice chair and keen off of the statement that Patricia made, that Jan echoed. The leadership, I think, continuation would be very helpful.
I second
that.
Second. I second
Are
the
there any-
nomination.
All right, any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I'm trying to echo whatever the city clerk did. If you are not in favor of Rolf, can you register by saying no? That just sounds backwards. May I assume by acclamation that we have the support to elect Rolf as vice chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Rolf.
Rolf.
Well, again, thank you all for your continuing support, and Rolf, for your continuing participation as the vice chair. Just as a note, in case anybody asks too, you may recall when we had our last election, while it's not a requirement of the city council, it was their preference that we always have a chair who is not from Palm Springs. You may recall that the chair is required to be from Palm Springs, but it was the interest of the city council members that to the extent possible that we elect a chair outside of Palm Springs. And so we've remained faithful to that. And thank you again, Rolf, for your willingness to continue to serve.
Thank you.
Moving on to the chairman's report. I wasn't sure whether I would be giving it or not, but just in case. If you would send to Nadia, we'll take a look at we have 5 committees: the marketing committee, the budget committee, the operations committee, the noise committee, and the landscape committee. The latter not being terribly active at this time, but we still want to keep it going. But if you would send to Nadia your top 3 choices in priority order of which committees or on which committees you would like to serve, then I'll sit down with Rolf and we will do the committee assignments for this coming year. So again, those committees are the marketing, the budget, operations, noise, and landscape. And if you have an interest in a committee other than the one on which you've been serving, please indicate that. We're going to try to accommodate the requests as they come in, and Rolf and I will do that together. And we'll do our best to assign the committee, the commissioners to the committee of their first choice. Next we have, let's see, let you know on item 11A, the arriving passengers protocol, Patricia Breslin is going to kind of be leading us in a discussion. She asked to kind of address this. And so Patricia, I'm just putting you, giving you a heads up that that comes on 11A, and that'll be coming up. And then on 11B, just to be giving some thought in anticipation of hitting this, that we will be talking about whether we need to have an August meeting or not. Historically, we've gone dark in August, but this is an open question for us. And then the other thing I want you to be thinking about is our meeting schedule on Wednesdays. And I'll get into that more, but it has to do with the conflict of the city manager from the city of Coachella in terms of their representation. So we'll address that when we reach that as well. So we have the August meeting as well. So what we will move on to now is the introductions and presentations. Tom, you're on mute.
So Harry ought to be joining us. Harry, are you here?
I'm here. I'll turn on my video here.
Now, if anyone remembers, Steve Bowser was the Deputy Director of Maintenance and Operations. He left in December. And since that time, we have hired a new replacement for Steve. Harry, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tom and Mr. Chairman. My name is Harry. I come from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm really glad to be here. And it's very nice to meet all of you. Just a little background about me. I actually have a 20-year aviation history. 11 of that was in the Air Force. I flew AWACS for about 7 years. Transitioned from that into airport management. So I started with the Port of Bellingham as an operations specialist. Went from there to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and then Renton Airport, where I managed that airport, first as the deputy director and then as the permanent director there. And this is now my 4th airport here in Palm Springs. I really enjoy being here, love the area, love aviation, and thank you for having me.
Welcome. We're very happy to have you.
Yes, indeed. Tom, do you have any other introductions or presentations?
Nadia, do you have a PowerPoint, I believe, or not this time?
Is that under the executive director report, or is that now?
It probably will be mostly under there, so I'll reserve it for that time.
Okay, good. Then we'll turn to Dr. Reddy for the city manager's report. David?
Good evening, everyone. Hey, I would just note, first of all, so as you know, Tom, this is tomorrow's your last day, Tom, I think. And so anyway, obviously we want to thank Tom for all his work for all the years. It's gone by so quickly. And in the interim, obviously, so Ulysses is going to step up and assist us on an interim basis. And what I thought I would do at this point, given where we are with COVID, instead of having those 2 top positions, we would just sort of go with what we have for now and see where the rest of the balance of this year takes us and what our financial situation is. And we will go from there. Now, that being said, there was discussion at council about the marketing position, that if we were going to go forward with the position, that might be an important position actually to fill in terms of getting us back recovered after COVID with air development, marketing, et cetera. So that being said, obviously there was a candidate that had surfaced from the subcommittee, and that individual was not able to take the job. The person, obviously there was a change of circumstances. They indicated they may have an interest again. But I think that is not going to materialize. That being said, there are a few other candidates that I'm going to get back into the mix with the airport subcommittee. And if there's someone there that you think we would want to move forward with, I'll wait to get your recommendation. So that's where we are on the staffing at this point. And I think that's all I have to report, Mr. Chairman, and can answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for the city manager, David?
All right.
No questions. All right. Then we're going to move to the budget and finance report. And Mark, I believe you're going to take us on that journey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, I think most of you already know that the City Council approved the budget as we discussed at the last meeting that occurred on June 30th. So looking forward to implementing those changes that were implemented, and feel fairly confident that the numbers we provided are looking good. So far through the end of the year, through June, our passengers actually exceeded our projections when the COVID situation started. So all of our projections are looking good at this time. And looking at our revenues to date, we're actually doing, again, good compared to what we had projected, with our CFCs at 98% of total budget, PFCs at 98%, our revenues at nearly 84%. So all of those categories are looking strong. There will be several things to post for the end of the year. We will be receiving about $2.5 million in grant funds that have not yet posted. There will be some other adjustments to the expenses, but overall, looking at things, the original projection, we estimated that we would use approximately $2 million of the CARES grant to balance our funds through the end of the year, and that number is still looking very good. So we anticipate moving forward with that, and we'll have additional information at the next Airport Commission meeting or updates on the finances. But at this point, the passenger traffic is following our projection path.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Nope. All right, then we're going to move into the discussion and action items, 11A, B, and C. The first is about the arriving passengers protocol. And Patricia, if I can call on you to kind of set the stage for this discussion.
That's all I can do at this point is set the stage. But basically, things are changing constantly at this time. And I know the airport itself has done a great job of informing passengers and all of that. I don't know where it leaves off from the airplane, where they have their masks on, to when they're crossing the tarmac, and where that goes. I don't know. And I don't know within the changing times and the transition that we're going to go through with all the different protocols, whether or not there has to be some new steps or take back some old steps. So I just wanted to know if anyone was interested in an oversight of watching this.
Let me add, first of all, too, that both Patricia and Aftab are on the Mayor Corps' special committee. What's the title of the committee?
Business Transition and Task Force or something like that.
Yeah. And
it's called the Reopening Task Force.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aftab. I think that when Patricia and I were talking, it was the issue too about how do we ensure, because Palm Springs has mandated the use of masks out in public. And how do we ensure, or what can we do, or what measures are currently being taken to ensure that passengers who disembark here at Palm Springs have their masks with them and are wearing them when they leave the aircraft? Is that, Patricia, kind of the
That's it, and that they understand that it is a city mandate coming in here in a comfortable way. It can be done in a comfortable way, but just to ensure that people aren't caught off guard.
Any comments to respond to Patricia?
Hi, it's not uncommon for airline personnel to, once an aircraft door is open, they'll oftentimes say your baggage can be found at carousel, whatever. That could be an ideal opportunity for them to welcome the customers on that flight to Palm Springs and remind them of the city ordinance.
Very good idea. So you're talking about the arrival announcement that the ground
yeah, I wouldn't necessarily put it on the flight attendant on their shoulders. I'm thinking more of the airport
Right.
representative who opens the aircraft door.
Right, right. Kind of arrival announcement along with where the baggage claim will be.
That's right.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, can I jump in here?
Sure.
Not to complicate things, but in addition to the reopening task force, the mayor has recently formed a very small working group to work on enhancing communication around public safety and mask wearing in throughout Palm Springs. It's been focused largely on working with the business community, but also keeping the citizens of Palm Springs informed. I am involved in that working group and would love to liaise with the airport because obviously the airport is a key point of entry. There's been some signage, as people know, in Palm Springs with the digital dashboards, but the airport is sort of a different point of entry into the city. So if there is some group on the airport commission with staff to have a dialogue about this, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, David. Other comments? Yeah, Rolf?
Yeah, I would just add to Todd's comment that not only on the arrival, by the opening the door, but the next step would be also to have some messaging in the baggage claim area that just continues the same messaging, and might add other messaging that might be necessary or appropriate.
That's a good thought. Other comments? Let me ask Tom. Tom, what can we ask the airlines, and how would we go about, or I guess in terms of like the arrival announcement, what steps could be taken?
Well, let me first describe, Mr. Chairman, the multi-layered steps we are taking. Since the advent of the pandemic, we have pretty much mandated that masks be worn anytime in the terminal complex. We have a recorded message that repeats that over and over, that it is mandated. It's not suggested, it's mandated. Custodial, police, operations, and even administration remind people that don't have it, that they must have one on. The gift shop sells masks. We also have received about 30,000 from the federal government. And so the police and ops and custodial are all armed with them. So if somebody does get off a plane, which is unlikely because all airlines mandate they must wear a mask, if someone were to not have it, which is highly unlikely, then they're there to give them a mask as well. Within the last 2 weeks, we have increased the signage from the deplaning side of the equation so that they will see signage as they're walking down the passenger boarding bridge on the doors, and then stanchions as soon as they enter. So there's a combination of those in the terminal as well. So it isn't just the incoming from the land side, but it's the incoming from the aircraft as well. As far as asking the airlines, yes, we can request that. I've actually done that in the past because I thought actually a couple of years ago, have a great message, tell them about the temperature of the area, how great a world-class destination, etc. What I did find out asking several airlines, they don't like to deviate from their standard message and contour something that is standard, but we will certainly ask again.
That's good. And I think Patricia's concern, and I echoed it too, it was really more about the inbound passengers who may not be aware of the local requirement of Palm Springs that mandates the use of masks. And so the outbound passengers, I know the signage is great, and I'm glad to hear about the increased signage. I think I don't know that this would take a vote at all, but I think if you're willing to talk with them again, and I think as Rolf and others have suggested, it could really be the arrival announcement, not from the flight attendants or the captain, but the individual who comes in, opens the door and says, by the way, your luggage can be found in carousel 2. And by the way, Palm Springs mandates the use of masks the minute you step out of the jetway. So
that we can do, yes. We
okay.
can do that.
That's great.
Okay, is that comfortable with everyone? Do we need any further action on that?
Yes, please. I'd like to make a request. I know this will be in the minutes, but in the interest of keeping the working group that I'm involved with for the city informed, could we get just the bullet points of what Tom just articulated sent to us in the next day with also with what the messaging that's in the baggage claim area and other areas are specifically, just so we can have that knowledge before the minutes come out?
Sure, we can get photos as well.
That would be great. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you share with us, David, who else is on that task force?
It's at this point, it is, I'm doing this from memory. It is Rob Hampton from the Bureau of Tourism. It is Daniel DeSelms from Emergency Preparedness, Denise and Diane, Denise and Amy from Communications, Christy, the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, and Aftab, and a couple of, and Dr. Zendel for public health.
Okay,
data.
great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay, upcoming meeting schedule 11B. Let me take what I think will be the easier of the two. And that has to do with whether we meet in August or not. We historically have not, but the option is ours, I believe, whether we meet or not. What is the will of the commission for an August meeting?
I say we should do historically, just not have it.
Gerald suggests we not have it. I'm seeing some nods. What do some of the rest of you think?
Well, I would be willing to have the meeting in August. I mean, these circumstances are a little bit different than normal years.
Yeah, I agree with Jan.
I agree as well.
I'm also willing to have one in August.
Yeah. I'm way into, I happen to agree with John as well, simply because we're going and we'll be dealing, Ulysses will be in charge at that point. Tom will have left. Not that we don't have that much to do with the day-to-day operations, but I think it would be helpful for us to have an opportunity with Ulysses too. So unless there are any vehement objections, we will in fact have
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, what would you like on the agenda? I mean, I don't know that there's anything specific that we would need for council, but if there's something specific you want, I don't know that there's anything pressing.
Yeah, because this is kind of new territory for us and the changing with the staffing. Can you give me a week or so to talk with some of the commissioners and talk with you to see what agenda items might surface?
We don't have any agenda items. I mean, if we don't actually have any agenda items,
right.
that I can foresee, if something comes up, we certainly can call a meeting. But if you just want to meet, I mean, that's okay too. I'm just, if there's something specific you want on, but we don't have anything specific to be putting on at this point.
Right, Jan has her hand raised.
One, and this is not an agenda item, Mr. Reddy. I think we should see the financial reports in August. However, I think that with respect to agenda items, that the chair and the vice chair should determine that if we need a meeting and then let us know. Because there may not be a need for one.
That's good suggestion, Jan. Why don't we follow that format? I think just the general keeping the commission involved and engaged with the budget, the traffic, the rest, any other reports that the new executive director might have. So Rolf and I will put our head together and in concert with you, David, and see. So we will let you know definitively if we have a meeting or whether we'll just not need the meeting at all, and for lack of agenda items, if that's permissible to the commission. I'm seeing nods that it is. Okay. The next question relative to the upcoming meeting schedule, and I did check with David in advance if this were permissible. To set the stage, although I know he's online, this has to do with Bill Pattison and the Coachella. Their city council meeting is on the same time as ours. They have executive session at 5, and they have the city council meeting at 6. And Bill is able to join us this evening because their city council meeting was canceled for this evening. But the question is, City of Coachella does appoint the city manager as the representative to the airport commission. So the question is that would anyone like any consideration to move our meetings from Wednesday to the day before or the day after, Tuesday or Thursday? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Thursday.
Bill, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Coachella, even though we're very remote as compared to the airport, it does affect us. And now that we're starting to see interest in hotels within our jurisdiction, our voice, we would always like it to be heard. At some point, we'd like to become part of the SBB as well. And so it's very important, I feel, that the Eastern Valley is heard on the commission. And yeah, unfortunately, with the time changing to Wednesday at 5:30, thankfully we had our meeting canceled tonight. But if that weren't the case, I wouldn't be able to join. So I would ask the commission to please consider either a Wednesday or a Tuesday or a Thursday, so that the city is able to continue to participate in these meetings. And thank you for your consideration.
Jan?
For me, Tuesdays will not work. Thursdays will work. Our council meeting is the first and third Tuesday of every month.
Okay. What about
I'll keep in mind that our city council meetings are on Thursdays.
Yes.
Definitely, we will have a conflict with our city manager.
Yes, that's true. Our city council moved from Wednesday to Thursday.
How about I recommend we do it at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday.
My understanding, and I have to defer to David Reddy, is that we cannot meet before 5:30. That was the direction of the city council.
Yes.
Is that correct, David?
That's correct.
So the earliest we can meet is at 5:30. Short of changing to a different week, and we did, in my memory, change from one week to another at one point, did we not? Or am I remembering incorrectly?
Yes, we did.
Dr. Reddy, may I ask the reason behind this commission cannot meet before 5:30?
Sure. City Council had passed a resolution. They discussed that having more people to participate, they thought would be important to have these commission meetings in the evening after people worked.
Yeah. And we did appeal it, and our appeal was overturned as well. David, is there a reason we meet that particular week? Can you refresh us?
We could meet a different week. The only difference is if there's something that you are going to make a recommendation to council. So, for example, let's say you made a recommendation to council on an item that would then be on the meeting to get it on. I'm trying to think. The agenda for next meeting is next Thursday. So council is meeting tomorrow. So if you, I'm just trying to think if it really wouldn't matter. The agenda is on the Thursday. So you wouldn't be on the meeting for tomorrow and it would be on the following week. So if you did it, let's just say you changed your weeks to the 1st and 3rd. So let's say you did it on the 1st and 3rd.
Or 3rd.
Yeah, the agenda is due that day, so it wouldn't be on for 2 weeks. So it's just a timing issue, as it turns out. So if you made a recommendation today, it would be on the next city council meeting. If you made a recommendation on the first week, it'd be in 2 city council meetings. Just how the agendas work. Yeah.
All right, I'm turning to the commissioners on this to speak, to express a will or what you would like to do with this particular item.
Correct. If I remember correctly, I mean, we used to be on the 3rd week.
We did used to be on the 3rd week, David. I think that's correct. And we changed it when the city council changed it.
Yeah, it's not a problem if you want to change it.
Okay.
I would request that we move it back to the 3rd week then, if that's possible, and then the city of Coachella will be able to continue to participate, and I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Do we need official action, a motion on this, David?
Yeah, that would be helpful if you wanted to
All right, so Bill has made a motion that we move our meeting to the third week. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, Kevin Corcoran's second. Any further discussion? Then the motion before the commissioners is to move the commission meeting to the third week of each month at 5:30 p.m.
On
All of
Thursday.
those,
On
pardon me?
Thursday. On Thursday.
No, not on Thursday. I'm sorry. Did I say that?
On Thursday, of course.
No, Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesdays. Okay.
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
If I misspoke, my apologies.
No, you didn't. You didn't. I just want to make sure it's remains on Wednesday.
It is remaining on Wednesday. Okay. Then all of those in favor to moving it for the third week on the Wednesday on the third week, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, moving forward from this point, Bill, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please let the City Council of Coachella know that their interests were listened to and you ably represented them. So thank you for that.
Commission.
Moving next to the Executive Director report, Tom, one of the first things I asked Tom, oh wait, I'm sorry, we have a projects update. Sorry, we have the projects update.
Thank you, Nadia. If you could put that on the screen. So one of the most exciting projects we have is the ticketing modernization. This comes directly from the construction management firm report. If you can you scroll it down a tad, Nadia, or do we miss that? Back it up one, please. If you could see at the bottom of the screen, see the canopy with the structural steel. That is one of 3 of the automated baggage handling system baggage unload carousels. So that's very exciting in that, if you recall, since 9/11, the TSA crammed all of the screening equipment into that backside of the building. And ever since then, it's been very challenging from a manpower perspective, from a workers' comp perspective, from an efficiency perspective. So these 3 carousels will carry the luggage after it's been screened, where airlines then can surround the carousel, not rely on just bulk and muscle to retrieve it from a belt, but it'll be conveniently carried and sorted to the appropriate airline. Next slide, please. You can see this is going to be the area where the 3rd carousel, they're grading that right now, going to add the necessary utilities and the concrete foundation for the 3rd carousel. Next slide. Inside, we have gutted an old building, folks, and you recall our prognostication that once we open an old building, there's all kinds of surprises. Well, there are lots of surprises, but you can see the demolition is complete. Leveling of the floor you can see happening there. There's a utility cut in the middle of the floor where very important utilities have to occur. All the materials that are potentially hazardous have been removed. So that's a very exciting part of it, with, of course, a lot of surprises that pop up when you're opening an older building. Next slide, please. More concrete work, and there's that structural steel on the right I alluded to, another view on the bottom of where the 3rd carousel will go. Next slide. I believe that concludes it. Well, just a remark on, how exciting is that? That is, I think that's possibly one of the surprises where you are seeing structural or infrastructure under the ground that wasn't properly documented over six decades. So those are some of the prizes. In fact, just last Thursday, the power went out in the terminal building. They had struck a high voltage line that was not shown on the drawings, and it took about 6 hours to fix. You can see again the IDF room going up. That one in the bottom, City Council approved the original architecture. That's actually the side profile of the new ticketing counters. I think it looks pretty mid-century modern, very sharp. On the right again is temporary structural to hold up the building as other structural elements are being put in. Are there any more, Nadia, by chance? So in regards to that project, it is moving smoothly from a construction perspective. There are change orders, there are deducts. If you recall, right out of the box, due to a difference between the architectural drawings and a technicality, the low bid contractor somewhat leveraged that to their advantage. and it took a good month and a half to get the new phasing schedule in place that would have met the contractual obligations with the low bidder. So that was interesting. It did cost extra to the project, but it was still lower at that point than the second bid. So that was remedied, and there are deduct change orders, there are add change orders. There are a lot of surprises because the architectural drawings could not envision what's in ceilings and in walls, so there's been a lot of changes. All in all, though, the construction aspect is going very well at this point. The other project is the passenger boarding bridges. If you recall, a spec was put together to go out to bid for either the rehabilitation and complete rebuild of all of the 8 units or brand new units. So the bids did come in. There were 4 participants, and the low bidder unfortunately had to be disqualified because of a technicality in their bid. Due to some of the surprises with the cost of things, the decision was made to rebid this and utilize federal money to do this sometime starting in spring with, this fall with the rebid, and hopefully begin that actual project of replacement for new passenger boarding bridges next summer. The good news is in the CARES Act, that allows us to use 100% federal money as opposed to the 90-10 split. So by doing this and using next year's entitlement grant, that will give sufficient money to almost pay 100% of the project. So that saves several $100,000 from the airport budget. Very good move. If you recall also, the governor several months ago, because of the PFAS, by the way, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, is the movie that talks about DuPont in the Northeast, the advent of the PFAS. Do watch it. It's very important. PFAS is a chemical that's in 1,300 projects, everything from dental floss to other things. It has had an impact to society. Please do watch that. I forget the actor's name, but you can look that up. So we were mandated to very promptly put into place an analysis of the underground water system here. And as you know, there's a massive aquifer that spreads throughout the valley. So we hired a consultant, and they dug 2 monitoring wells that go down about 200 feet. And I think it was about a dozen soil samples of areas that had what we call the AFFF, aqueous film forming foam that comes out of the fire trucks when there's an emergency. So there have been discharges of that foam, not a lot, but some discharges. But because there were discharges, they have to soil the sample. So between the soil sample and the water monitoring samples, and analyzed by a third-party expert in the matters of parts per million of PFAS, that will be sent to the state, the results of that, to make some type of determination. We don't know what that is. Every airport in the state of California is bound by this new process. So that monitoring expedition has completed its work, and the analysis will then ensue. Also out to bid was the aircraft rescue and firefighting trucks. 2 of our vehicles are going to be replaced. The low bidder was accepted and approved by City Council. And it was pretty much on budget what we anticipated. The car rental project was put in abeyance since the advent of the COVID pandemic. And as been reported every meeting, that project, regardless of the pandemic, if you look at the stats on the demand and where we go with constraints, has to be done. The good news is there was concern, being next to the existing building, with the reinvention, so to say, of some of the car rentals and certainly the recovery period. It's quite evident that it probably will end up to be smaller. That analysis has to be done. I'm not sure I mentioned this, but early estimates, I'm not going to mention the amounts because they're astounding what the early estimates were. It got into the well over the 100 million mark. So that was actually in the early estimates of the bonding capability was really almost well beyond some of the limits for the $1.4 million square foot facility. So if there's one golden lining out of the pandemic, it's probably going to end up ultimately in a smaller, more affordable car rental facility. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my reports.
Are there any questions of Tom? Tom, I also asked Tom, while you're thinking of questions, I also asked him for kind of a list of the projects that he has overseen in the last 13 years. Tom, can you give us kind of an outline of all of the projects that you completed in the last 13 years? I
gave you the list. Why don't, if you could. Do you want
It's on the table. We had to separate rooms. Well, as a matter of fact, there are 13 projects that totaled $137 million. And I guess I don't know whether we want to run through them or not, Tom. Or
it gets me tired thinking about it.
It does. But it does range from the main runway reconstruction, as you recall, the new FFA control tower, to courtyard remodels, to master plan updates, to all sorts of things. And I'll see, this will be part of the minutes. Nadia, if you will include this list in the minutes so that the commissioners can have a copy of what all projects have been done since 2007 through this year. I'd appreciate that. That would be good. Tom, any other executive director reports?
I have a question.
Yes, Rolf.
Tom, what is the estimated completion date now of the passenger ticketing project?
Well, there's two phases. The main phase, which will have the inauguration of the new baggage handling system, is due in December. That will include the north end ticketing area, all the ticket counters, the baggage handling system, and all the connectivity, the remodeled public space. Then looking into spring, and the south end has to be done as far as the public space in the back of the house. That is nowhere as dynamic and dramatic. And but the main phase, which represents 80% of the project, should be done at this point by December.
Any other questions of Tom at this point? If not, I'm going to move on to the next item of commissioner requests. And I'm going back into Tom's office because on behalf of the commission, I have a plaque to give Tom. And I'm going to show it to you all, if I can. This is the plaque. Whoops, we still have to mount the photograph. But I do want to give this to Tom.
That's beautiful.
And let me read it. It's to Tom Nolan, Executive Airport Director, Palm Springs International Airport, 2007 to 2020. Congratulations on and thank you for your 13 years of visionary leadership to Palm Springs Airport to improve the flying experiences of the traveling public. Wishing you success in your new position, presented on behalf of the Airport Commission.
That is magnificent. That is absolutely beautiful.
Wanted Tom to have that. I wish everybody were here in person to share in the moment, but we do wish Tom well. Oops, this actually goes.
Oh, I will put it together. It is magnificent. It'll hang in my office forever and at my home when I retire.
That's great. It's one of Tom's favorite photographs.
It
in
is.
fact, you can see it as his screensaver.
Yeah, that's right.
Down there.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm just going to sit here to finish as opposed to go back to the other room down the hallway. Are there any commissioner requests or reports at this point? I see not.
I just want to make the comment that Tom has been an excellent executive director, and I have seen him go through stuff eloquently. And it's going to be hard to find someone that is as eloquent, professional that he is. So I'm glad that we have Mr. Jones and Rolf as chair people. And I just want to say to Tom, good luck, best wishes, and thank you for our adventure, and may you have new ones.
Very nice.
Thank you, Jan. That was very well said. Very well said indeed. Any other comments before we move forward? Then let me move into commissioner requests and reports. Are there any commissioner requests or reports? None. Report on council items. David Reddy, anything more than what's in the agenda packet? Nope. Any correspondence, Nadia?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, airline activity reports and schedules.
The activity report is not ready yet.
Right. We're used to that. Because of timing, not because of
Yes.
staffing issues, all because of timing. Well, then I think we're down to adjournment. We had a very successful meeting, I think, and this is Tom's last opportunity to be with us today, and at the subsequent meetings, it will be Ulysses. Many of you know him, some of you don't, and we'll have to have an opportunity for him to get to know all of you better too. So if there's anyone who wants to move for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, Aftab moved to adjourn, and second, who was the second? Ken? Who said it?
I'll
All right, I couldn't catch you said it that quickly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. We'll let you know, Rolf and I will put our heads together with David about the need for an August meeting, depending upon any agenda items, and let you know as quickly as we can. Thank you again to everybody, I should say. Bye-bye.
Great job. Great job.